Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126, demroots at oppermail.com. Pacific West Bamboo, your number one source for timber construction and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, and products. They specialize in eco-friendly, reclaimed wood products for the home, garden, located in Portland, Oregon, servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. And that's my buddy Amanda over there. So tell Amanda that you heard from her from the Opperman report. And also, too, they're doing all kinds of stuff over there. You want to find their website. Find them on Facebook, Pacific West Bamboo, because she's an artist, and they have all kind of fountains and stuff like that they build out of bamboo. So you want to check that out. And all this kind of stuff they're doing. I was even talking to Amanda, the owner over there, and she was talking about that they want to start building bicycles out of bamboo products. So that would be something really interesting. So forget the Easy Wider. Go to Bamboo, okay? And check out Infinity Home Plans, Designs, and Services, your resource for 3D, 2D architectural services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawing sets, 3D models and renderings, and more. InfinityHomePlans.com. Okay, guys, if we get a call. Oh, I got a whole bunch of people trying to get in. Rick C. Let's see if I can bring him in. Add to group call. Hey, Rick. Okay, we're bringing in Rick from Rick and Annie. Rick Champagne is like a rock star. He's a radio host on awakeradio.us and awakeradio.uk. Has a show called Shake and Wake with Rick and Annie. Rick, you there?
Yeah, how you doing tonight?
Hey,
great
brother.
show, by the way. I didn't catch the whole thing, but what I did hear was really great.
Yeah, he had
really good.
Yeah, he had great OJ information, but he couldn't stay. So it's just you and me, bro.
Say hi, Annie.
Hello.
Hey, Annie, how are you?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
Good. Cindy Jean-Pierre, you want to join us?
Hi, how you doing, Cindy? I know Ann and Ed. Ed's been on our show many times, and he's always got really great information. Plus, when Ed and I get together, we have a lot of fun. It's like a couple of teenagers at the bus stop or smoking area or something, you know.
We don't have that much fun, man. Okay. But Cindy is the owner of CJMarsRadio.com, and that's the chat room we were just hanging around over there in. So Rick, what do you got, man? You got some OJ info?
Well, I'm kind of up in the air, really, on I know something ain't right about the whole thing, but I'm wondering if they were tampering with the evidence to cause doubt and cover it up, or if they were actually framing him, because it can go either way, you know. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, either he's guilty of sin and part of these satanic secret societies, you know, because you don't get to be a superstar unless you're in bed with them on some level.
Okay, let me hit you with a couple of things, Rick, okay? First of all, OJ comes out of San Francisco, which is right, the headquarters of the Temple of Set. It's also a big Process Church location. That's where he grew up in high school. His father was a female impersonator. Okay, a lot of people don't know this. His father was a homosexual female impersonator.
Wow.
Yeah. And his mother worked at a hospital that all the employees got their jobs at that hospital by the Reverend Jim Jones, People's Temple's cult. Okay? Jim Jones had all the political juice in that town, and he controlled that hospital where OJ's mother, who was a nurse, got her job. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with all of that. Now, by the way, too, he was mentioning Dr. Henry Lee. I've met Dr. Henry Lee in person, and we kind of talked about this a little bit. And I didn't get the impression that I don't know. I think he's going along with the popular vote right now that OJ did it. I suspect, you know my theory. I'm going to do a book about OJ myself, okay? And I'm going to get this guy's book, Stephen Singular, at StephenSingular.com. Great information about Fuhrman that I didn't have before. I've had some of this stuff, but not this. I have my own theories about how the media was all marching in step with this narrative, you know, and with the storyboard that they came up with. And it seems to fall in line with the Process Church, with their goal of creating a race war and helter-skelter like they did, and creating chaos like they did with the Son of Sam cult killings, where they wanted chaos going on all over the place, and like they did with Charles Manson, where Manson supposedly wanted the race war. And that's the same thing that went on here in the O.J. trial. And
and even I think what might have sparked that was the Rodney King incident. Maybe we can ramp this up if it's a celebrity.
Well, as far as I know, Rodney King was way after O.J., no?
Oh, was it? I thought it was before. Maybe I'm
pretty
wrong.
Sure. But the thing is, you got to understand. One second.
Way.
No, 1 second, because you got to understand that Charles Manson and the Process Church came out of the Church of Scientology, and from my investigation, what I have discovered is that many people involved in the O.J. Simpson story, Greta Van Susteren, Marsha Clark.
How did she get on TV, man? She got a face for radio.
Tell me about it.
I'm sorry.
You know how?
We joke around a lot on Shake and Wake. Forgive me. I don't judge people by the...
No, sure. But the thing is, because she was, her husband was Michael Jackson's attorney, and her husband was an attorney for the Church of Scientology. And so many people involved in the O.J. Simpson trial were involved in the Church of Scientology. And they cover the whole thing. And you want to hear something else? The limo driver, his mother was an attorney for one of the Manson killers.
Wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
The connections are unbelievable, aren't they? And I'd like to also add, if you were sitting on the jury, knowing the coverage this case is getting, do you think that maybe if, like, you and I and Annie didn't know each other and we were sitting on that jury, that back there in that room we might have said something along these lines? Okay. They found blood on the socks, shovels in the Bronco and stuff, and blood on the gate, and it really looks like he's guilty. But because of the reputation of the Los Angeles police, and because he is a black man, if we find him guilty when we see that there's a possibility there could have been some evidence tampering, there's already 2 people dead. I really don't want that on my conscience, Ed. If a whole bunch of people kill each other in the streets of America over this movie star guy who's black but whiter than toast, who's probably guilty as sin, but the way the police did it and the reputation of the Los Angeles police, I know he's probably guilty and that something's not right about all of this, but I think we should vote not guilty, because if we vote not guilty, karma will get him. Maybe he'll trip himself up. Maybe they'll get him in the civil suit. But I don't want to see any bloodshed this afternoon if we all go in and say that we found him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and then black people are rioting in the streets, pulling people out of their vehicles or killing people and setting fires everywhere. Because they believe their boy was framed. So I'm going to hold out and I'm going to vote not guilty. Not because I don't think that he's probably guilty, but because of the reaction of the public. And the fact is that the police didn't conduct it correctly. Now, if I said that to you and other jurors, even if you thought he was guilty, even if you thought a lot of the evidence was there, then I would think that we would probably come back with an acquittal, and that's what might have happened.
Can I tell you something, man? When you're in court for especially long trials, it's a small room. It looks kind of big on TV, but courtrooms are kind of small. You sit next to people, you can smell them, you smell their breath. You notice their little habits, their little idiosyncrasies that the camera's not focused on. There's certain people that the camera's not focused on that have a lot more personality and draw attention to themselves in the courtroom. Jurors, for the most part, take things very seriously. They notice everything going on. They notice the little minor body language of the judge, of the DA, of the defendant. They notice all these little things going on in the courtroom. What you experience when you're in a courtroom, especially for a long trial, and the longest trial I've ever been in, like 5-6 days, but most trials are very short. But for something like that, there's no way that would have happened. Okay, the jurors also too, they take that thing very seriously. They take their oath seriously, and unless they see that no one else is taking it seriously, then they'll just go along with the mood. Now, what I saw happen in this trial is there was a greater narrative that was going on, and people like James Woods were coming there and visiting the courtroom, and then going back in private meetings with the judge and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff was going on. I don't believe for a second that the jury was worried about race riots or anything like that. I think that they saw certain specific things, like problems with the blood, like this guy's talking about. And because that was clear, that they were able to show with the socks.
Well, right.
The blood on the socks would drip through one side, yeah.
The only guarantee that we have, like the problem with DNA, that the blood was there. But, I mean, in any trial, an expert can get up or the police can get up and they can show you they have blood evidence. But where did that blood evidence come from, and was it planted? Or, in other words, a switcheroo can be done at any time. They can be showing you DNA tests on a chart, but as far as you know, the DNA that they're comparing to the DNA at the murder scene could be 2 vials taken from O.J. when he was sitting in interrogation.
Yeah, but what about that vial that they were carrying around before they
Right. And the one that sat in the hot truck, put it this way, we watched that whole trial, and I remember being in a diner at the bottom of the street that we used to get good, cheap food, and we'd sit there and watch TV and hang out there drinking coffee and talking with the owner. And the way it was handled was like a circus. And I think, I was in my mother's womb when JFK was shot and the whole thing came over the television.
So what are you trying to say? You have an alibi?
Yeah. No, when they came back with the jury on that day and announced the verdict, and then the cameras showed black people around the world and in bars cheering. To me, I don't think I've ever witnessed anything.
Okay. Wait.
The night that chase had taken place. Yeah. And I was on stage, and I actually asked the public to pray for this guy. I don't know if he's going to kill himself or what's going on. Maybe he's guilty, maybe he's innocent, but pray for him, It was a sad situation, the whole thing. I think it was just another divide and conquer between blacks and whites and police officers and citizens and the justice system, showing that you really can't trust it.
Okay. I got someone I'm about to call up and bring them on the call who actually knows Mark Fuhrman.
Oh, we could do a whole show on that guy. He should have had his Nazi emblem on his arm.
We just did do a whole show on him.
Yeah, right. And now he's on Fox News.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wish we would have been able to get into more about the Fuhrman. Hey, what's up? You're on the air. So now, caller, can we say your first name?
My name is Renata.
Renata.
Yes.
Now, we just had a really long show. We had Steven Singular from stevensingular.com, and he wrote a book about Mark Fuhrman. Okay? He was just on here for a whole hour. And his book is called, it's a really good book, man. You should pick it up. About how Fuhrman, it's called Legacy of Deception, an investigation of Mark Fuhrman and racism in the LAPD. Now, one of the things he was talking about was about how Fuhrman knew Nicole before the murders.
Right. I'm aware of that.
Do you know anything about that?
Yes, I was working in Columbus, Georgia, when all that happened, and we were always glued every morning, every employee in the place. We were following that.
So you were watching the trial every day, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever have any experience of talking to Fuhrman?
I have. I communicated with Mark last year on Facebook.
Right.
And I found it a good experience. He's very honest, and some people can take honesty, as I am very controversial as well. And, you know, some people have don't have a tolerance for that.
Well, what do you think about the rumors with people saying that Mark Fuhrman had a relationship with Nicole?
That I wouldn't want to go in there with that about that. He has been called to the house during, you know, confrontations that O.J. had with Nicole. Mark has some problems himself, but I think, you know, at the time when all this was going on, I didn't know him. So I can't really, you know, comment on that because I don't know.
Okay, well, what kind of problems does he have now?
Well, he's very blunt. He was very blunt on Facebook, and he had some very detrimental comments with people on Facebook, and I think because of that, he disappeared off Facebook for a while. But I missed talking to him. It got very ugly. People were flinging mud at him, and he flung it right back. And a lot of people just didn't know any facts. So it got ugly, and I got out of there in a hurry when the bad stuff started.
Now, what about, did people bring up any accusations of Mark Fuhrman being a racist?
Yes.
And how would he react to that?
Well, you know, I live in Columbus, Georgia, and you're not telling me anything about racism. We are in 2014, and this small town is still full of racists. As I know for sure and have documented evidence, the DA's office here, dating way back into the 80s, late 70s and 80s, are nothing but racist, and 5 wrongful convictions came out of this DA's office right here. I lived here for 35 years and moved away, and I'm visiting here with my son for Father's Day, but I would never live in this town again.
Gotcha. Now, how about your friend Joycelyn? Is she going to call in tonight?
I don't know about Jocelyn, but Jocelyn is a wonderful, amazing researcher, and she has come up with amazing things. You really need to talk to Jocelyn.
No, I know, yeah. You think you can get her to call in tonight? We'll be on for probably another, I don't know, a little while longer.
I can, have you contacted her?
Not lately, no. But
Yeah.
she had sent me some information. She sent me some interesting information about connection with Crowley and satanic cults and stuff like that. Right. And she has a lot of good information about that.
Only the upper echelon of Columbus society knew about this. Nobody else knew what was going on in Columbus. There was a Greek man named Cicero, who came to Columbus, and he started the Order of the Golden Dawn, which came from Greece. And he had a nightclub here with it's a demonic cult. And he started a nightclub here. And I was not, at that time, I wasn't aware of it, but it was a block away from the government center. So all the young lawyers and DAs went in there. And what they called a nightclub with a twist, it was called the Inferno Club, which means hell. And Cicero had a snake in there, which depicts Satan. So there was an undercurrent of the occult in Columbus, Georgia, and Jocelyn was the one who came up and researched it. And it goes, the whole the people who ran this town were involved in this cult.
In Columbus, Georgia.
In Columbus, Georgia, yes. It started with in the late, in 77, September 16th of 77, an elderly white woman of the upper Columbus echelon in society was murdered. She was tortured and then strangled, and within 8 months, 7 women died the same way. And the little old, dumb, good old boys in the police force at that time couldn't figure out what happened in this town. And then in 1984, 2 overzealous racist DAs got a hold of this case, and they fabricated, because all of the women were from the upper echelon. They were relatives, close relatives, mothers, and of the most prominent businessmen in Columbus. And they wanted answers to who killed their loved ones. So, but the police could not give them an answer. And then in 84, a gun that was stolen out of the area, the target area of the 7 women, a gun was stolen and traced to a black man named Carlton Gary.
What year was this?
Now, pardon?
What year did that happen?
In 84, the gun was traced, like 8 years after the murder, the serial killing, which is known as the Columbus Stocking Strangler, because he strangled them with their own stockings in their own bed. But after the second victim, they knew he just wanted to hurt. He tortured them, and he got off on the act of strangulations and left semen on their bellies. And when they arrested Carlton Gary 6 years after the last killing, they knew it did not match the semen. But yet, 2 overzealous young DAs, Bill Smith and Doug Pullen, who later became judges, got a conviction of this man who has been on Georgia death row since 1986 with 2 dates for execution. But in both times it was halted because, and the case is still open, and he still has a strong defense team trying to get him a new trial. This man was railroaded, and but the whole town is guilty because everybody knew something was wrong, but nobody, they wanted a scapegoat, and he was the perfect scapegoat. He was he was a burglar. He stuck up fast food restaurants, which gave him the name the fast food bandit. But he had never killed anybody. I have met him. I have visited with him on death row, and Carlton Gary is not. Somebody at the local newspaper asked me, "What makes you think Carlton Gary didn't do it?" I said, the absence of malice. But my story is way too long to discuss here. In 1980, I had the opportunity, someone who I met in 1964, I had the opportunity to spend more time with him. He did a service for me, and for 2 weeks every evening, he would sit with me, and we would have conversations. And during those conversations, I picked up on some very, very scary things. A man who I've known, but I have never, had the opportunity to talk to.
Well, let me ask you this. So now you and Jocelyn, you've been volunteering your time trying to exonerate this guy on death row, right?
Yes. But he still has a strong defense team. I am the advocate for someone else who got life in prison for a murder of a friend of mine that happened 2 years after the Strangler stopped. And last year, over a year ago, I requested to view the files in the prosecutor's office, because I always felt that my friend was a victim of the Columbus Strangler.
Now, you were allowed to review the prosecutor's file?
Yes.
How were you able to do that?
Pardon?
How were you able to do that? What made them?
The Open Records Act. I went in there with a form, and they had to turn the files over to me, and I pulled all the pertinent files and had copies made, and there were 3 distinct signatures of the Columbus Strangler. The Columbus Strangler assaulted 2 women with an inflexible object. One of them had a broomstick stuck up her vagina, and the other one, another rigid object. And this came out at the trial, because the court reporter was a friend of mine. She said, "I will never forget this picture of the woman with the broomstick up her vagina." So my friend, Mary Sue Ogletree, in the prosecutor's files, I found the crime scene photos. Her vagina had 2 abrasions inside of her vagina, and she was assaulted with an inflexible object as well. And that was the proof that she was indeed a victim of the Strangler. For her, 14 years later, they found the scapegoat to pin it on another man his name is Michael S. Finn. He is in prison for life for the murder of Mary Sue Ogletree. This man was, it's a long story. He was on his...
Pretty sick, isn't it? It's not bad enough that they do the most horrendous things because they worship the devil. But then they frame
Yes.
an innocent person, and that's like just twice as sick. They have no empathy. And they're
Well-
everywhere in the highest places of power. How you doing? My name's Rick. I'm from Shake and Wake with Rick and Annie. We're friends of Ed, and we do a radio show also. Go ahead. They disgust me. The whole world needs to know what they're doing, and they need to be stomped out, put in prison, speedy trials, and execution. Actually, they deserve the rest of their life in jail to suffer because death would be too easy upon these creeps. But go ahead. I'm sitting here listening to this.
You know, you might as well have the execution first, then the speedy trial. But let me ask you a question, Renata. Okay.
No, that would be a witch hunt, Ed.
Oh, sorry.
And,
Okay.
you know, it'd be too easy to accuse innocent people. And then you'd be like, no, I'm innocent. Like they do to people in the Patriot movement, planting pornography on their computers or making up lies about people, setting people up because we know the truth. And we're the most dangerous people on the planet. Those of us who are exposing them. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. But Renata, now is this the case?
Yes.
Is this the case you were telling me about that where Mark Fuhrman wrote a letter to the DA's office for you to be able to review? Which one was that?
Well, they jacked me around for 3 weeks and wouldn't turn the files over to me. And Mark Fuhrman emailed D.A. Slater, and within a day they opened the records for me. And D.A. Slater, and I just found this, Jocelyn found this out, that D.A. Slater, the man I have been suspecting since 1980 to be the strangler and the murderer of my friend Mary Sue Ogletree, D.A. Slater's father in 2011 was charged by a private school where he was a teacher as a pedophile. He propositioned a 15-year-old boy. And after that, this case disappeared so fast and was buried so deep, nobody ever heard anything about it. And we found out that the man I suspect went into business with Julius Slater, D.A. Julius Slater's father. And that's why the DBI went to her and said, look, you need to order a mitochondria DNA test on this guy's niece. And she would not respond. She wouldn't do it. And we found out why, because her father was in business with the prime suspect, Lee Baird, of the Ogletree murder. And I have records of at least 20, 30 people being interviewed by Columbus police, except the prime suspect, because they all partied with him at his house. I can't go into this, what went on in this house, but he set all the people in high places up in the government and the lawyers, DAs, judges, 2 mayors of Columbus. It's disgusting what happened here. But I need, Jocelyn and I need a foot in the door for the national media to get this opened up. That's our only way, because we cannot get anything done in Georgia. I have written to the Attorney General of Georgia. I have written to the Supreme Court of Georgia. And anybody who hasn't lived through all this in Columbus, just has no idea what went on down here. You cannot imagine what went on in Columbus, Georgia.
Well, who have you contacted to try and get you to help you with this case in Georgia?
Pardon?
Who have you contacted to try and help you with this case in Georgia?
The Attorney General, Sam Olens. I have receipts for letters that I have sent, and nobody has responded.
What about like Nancy Grace?
Pardon?
You ever try Nancy Grace?
Yes, Nancy Grace. I have contacted all the major, the three news media, and when they research the Columbus Strangler and everything, they come up with things only what the Columbus people want them to know. The truth is not out there. And that's it's frustrating. I have been in this for 34 years, and I will not stop because I know the truth. I have faith. Had I not spent about 30 hours with this man that I've known since 64, had I not sat and in conversations, I would not be here 34 years later. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Cindy, Rick?
Yeah. Annie, he's asking a question. Annie was eating, so.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. What are you eating?
Steak.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Do you think Mark Fuhrman was actually involved in the murders, and that's why he might have framed O.J.? Or do you think that maybe O.J. is part of the secret society, and by tampering with the evidence, they know they could get an acquittal for him? See, that's what I'm wondering is O.J. guilty? Was he framed?
Okay.
Or did they help him get off, is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The tampering of the evidence, we know that happened. For what purpose?
Okay.
Was it happen to frame him, or did that happen so that there could be a mistrial, or that the jury would have to come back and say, well, there's reasonable doubt? What's your opinion?
Okay, here's what you got to do.
Fuhrman was involved?
Hold on, I'll tell you. You ask me a question, I'll tell you, right? Have a bite of steak, Rick. Okay, let me answer your question. Listen, bro.
Well, I've been sitting here being quiet.
I know you have. I know. Hey, by the way,
I wanted to hear what that lady had to say.
Let me tell you something.
What's her? Yeah.
I want to publicly thank Rick Champagne. Okay, because yesterday he spent 4.5 hours with me working on the computer trying to get our Skype up. And Rick, I thank you very much for all your help yesterday, man. That was because I was exhausted. I know you had to be tired too because you did a whole show before. And then you had 7
days a week. But I love you, brother.
No, I love you too, man. And I really want to thank you for that and everybody. Because I even I mentioned about how we were working out all day today, in my blog post. Because that whole show got.
Thank you. That was very nice.
No, well, thank you very much, man. I just want everybody to know that Rick Champagne and Rick and Annie Shake and Wake, they're on every morning, just about on awakeradio.us and awakeradio.uk, and on all the time. They're on the radio a lot. And they're going to be on Chip Tatum's station with me, too.
Yeah, we are.
Ed?
Yeah?
How about Jocelyn and I fly out to Vegas to talk to you?
You can talk to me on the phone, okay? If you want to fly out to Vegas, that's great, man. But you can talk to me on the phone. We could talk. I have no problem with that.
Okay, well, we don't have enough time to talk on your radio show.
No, I know. I mean, yeah. Just give me a call.
Okay. I would even pay the airfare for Jocelyn and me to come out there at my expense.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to fly out. What, are you kidding me? I'm not even going to pay for the phone call. Renata, I love you. I'm not paying for the okay, but not
No, at my expense.
No, I know, sweet. I was just teasing you. No, definitely. Yeah. You, me, and Jocelyn, we could talk about this, and we can maybe do a show about it in the future. Now, Rick, back to the thing, right?
Question.
Yeah.
What does the lady think? Does she think that maybe Fuhrman had something to do with the actual murder? Maybe he was jealous. Maybe he was doing something with her.
Renata, do you think that Fuhrman had anything to do with the murder of Nicole?
I cannot comment on that. But I tell you one thing that I will never forget at o.j. Simpson's trial, when the foreman of the jury announced not guilty, I was watching Robert Kardashian's face, which was in total disbelief.
Shock, yeah.
Yeah, I will never forget that.
All right, guys, let me put some things into context for you here, okay? What you have to read, don't worry about O.J.'s son, okay? And what you have to read is Alex Constantine. And look up his work, because I was following Alex Constantine when he was commenting on the O.J. trial back on Usenet. During the trial, we would be on the internet, on the old alt OJ, alt NoJ, those Usenet chat rooms that everyone was debating this trial. Alex Constantine is a genius researcher. Mm-hmm. What he came up with, now remember, Rick, before I was talking to you about how the Scientologists, the Process Church, right, all these guys, OJ coming up out of San Francisco, OJ's mother being involved with the People's Temple, okay? Now, Alex Constantine came up with that OJ was involved in cocaine dealing with Al Cowlings and the guys who killed Roy Radin. Mensker, the two hitmen that killed Roy Radin, who was with the Process Church in New York City, that was involved in the show that we're doing coming up, Roy Radin, the Cotton Club murders and all of that, okay? The guys who killed him were Larry Flint's bodyguards, okay? And those guys, according to Constantine, were involved in coke dealing with o.j. Simpson. Now, you can go back around that time, okay? And I remember this, like I can remember when I woke up this morning. Cindy Garvey, the wife of
the baseball player.
Right. She was getting divorced from Steve Garvey. And she went in her divorce papers and she says, they're all selling coke. All of them. OJ, Bruce Jenner, Steve Garvey, they're all involved in selling coke. Now who was involved in that little group? Kardashian, all that bunch there.
Don't you think the Los Angeles police are involved in that little group?
Yes, Steve, the gun, Steve. Now I'm talking to Rick. Okay, Rick. The gun OJ had in the Bronco was given to him by a cop. OJ had cops at his house all the time. Ron Shipp was hanging out at OJ's house. He was the cop that testified against OJ about the lie detector thing. But Ron Shipp was also in the car when the sister, Nicole's sister, got that drunk driving arrest. Ron Shipp was with her that night. OJ was surrounded by cops. OJ,
yeah, and guess what?
Yeah.
Who had the power to come in under federal status and shut down any investigation? A man by the name of Ted Gunderson, head of the Los Angeles FBI, who had pretended to be a patriot, but it has been exposed as working for the other side and a pedophile and a Satanist himself. So, when you've got protection like that, and the FBI could step in and say, okay, we're going to take over this investigation, nothing to see here, and we have jurisdiction. It's clear funny stuff is going on,
The thread I see, and you got to remember too, there's a lot of accusations. Ted Gunderson was married to Anton Levine. Gunderson was married to a Satanist at one point.
His ex-wife. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I once thought Ted Gunderson was a great guy because I saw YouTubes and he's exposing the satanic sex slave rings of the children and pedophiles in Washington But what he is controlled opposition, Well,
Rick, my story with Gunderson, right?
No, go ahead. Let's hear it.
Okay, forget it. I knew Gunderson for years, and since the 90s. And
he pretended to be friends with a lot of people in the movement, so he could get
it had nothing to do with the movement. This was in the PI business. And we were involved on the same case out here in Vegas involving the Binions, the murder of Ted Binion. And in fact, Gunderson was brought on that case, and it was Stu Webb that got him knocked off the case because he wasn't licensed in Nevada. But my point is this. I was talking one day to Jackie Maguli, who was the mother of the children at the McMartin preschool, child molestation case with satanic overtones and all kind of stuff like that, and about the tunnel report and stuff like that. So I was talking to her one day. I was chatting with her online, and she said, call me up. I called her up at home. We were talking, and I started talking about Ted Gunderson. Ted Gunderson was living with her, okay? And she said, yeah, you don't know this story, man? Everybody knows this story.
I don't think you've ever told us this one. I've heard every other one.
Well, she tells me. I know I said this with my interview with Stu. Stu knows this whole story. Stu Webb we're talking about. Anyway, so she tells me out of the blue, because at the time I was a Ted Gunderson supporter, and she told me out of the blue, yeah, Ted Gunderson talks to Aquino every day on the phone. By the way, there's a little more to the story. Jackie Maguli thought that I was Alex Constantine because I was familiar with all his work and his research, because he also did a lot of work on the McMartin preschool satanic ritual abuse. And she told me Gunderson talks on the phone every day to Michael Aquino. And I said, what? Why would he be doing that? And she said, to make himself feel important. Okay? And I said, well, okay. And I accepted it blindly, but it sounded weird to me at the time. But then when I started hearing it, I liked Gunderson, until I started hearing all the accusations by Stu Webb. And I can confirm that for a fact that he was, it was told to me by someone who had no axe to grind at the time, that he was dealing with Aquino every day.
Wow.
And, that thread, travels through everything. And like I said, the connections, I think, with the OJ trial is, that whole Process Church and Scientology. That's the book I'm going to do. And when I can remember back, sitting on my friend's porch, who was a NYPD cop, Harbor Aviation. And I was showing him my notes that I had on all the connections of everybody in the OJ trial to the Scientology Church, to the Charles Manson case. Because those cops, Dale and Venata, they were all involved in Manson case too, okay? And it's amazing. Marsha Clark, her ex-husband, was shot by her pastor of the Scientology Church, shot her ex-husband. Her ex-husband used to visit a weekly poker game with O.J. Simpson and owed O.J. Simpson money at the time of the trial. Forget it. There are so many connections in this case back and forth, and they all weave back and forth through the Church of Scientology and also with the Manson and the Process Church. And when I sat down on my friend's porch, and I had like a flow chart with lines going back and forth to everybody, like the old mafia charts, how they connect to each other. And it was so terrifying that I tore it up, and I said, that's it. I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want anything to do with these people. But now, look at me now. I'm in the thick of all this stuff, so, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, well, what I keep trying to say on the show is if you're exposing the truth and you know what the truth is, and you are with the Creator, what this really is a war between the destroyers and the Creator and the Creator's children. It's good versus evil. And what the American public and a lot of people who just watch TV, they think Satanism and all that stuff is just Hollywood, scary horror movie stuff. What they don't realize is that all of these agencies together are like the United States of Satanism. They are all working together in concert. So when you run around saying, no, it's the Satanic Jews, no, it's the Jesuits, no, it's the Freemasons, no, it's all of them together, working as one, pointing the fingers at one another, laughing, because the general public is watching TV, oblivious that they've got plans to slaughter us all and have lawlessness one day, and they will be untouchable. But people are waking up now.
Which is with kind of the goal of the Process Church and the Charles Manson cult and stuff like that was to create chaos. And that's what I see over and over again. But we have a question in the chat room by Cindy, and she's saying, I am betting Simpson hired somebody. Now, I'll tell you an interesting story there on that, Cindy, is that there's another thread throughout the Simpson case, and that is Anthony Pellicano, who was the PI to the stars. He's in prison right now, okay, for wiretapping everybody and their brother. Okay, this guy wiretapped Steven Seagal. He did wiretapping with involving you know that guy, Risky Business. That guy, the Scientologist guy.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, right? Thank
Yeah.
you. He's involved in all these wiretapping cases. They put him in prison. They caught him with C4 and hand grenades in his office, right? Not every PI has C4. You know, not every PI is wiretapping people. Not every PI has hand grenades. Okay? But his connection to this OJ case is fascinating. OJ went to play golf with Bill Clinton a couple of weeks before the murders. At that time, Anthony Pellicano was working for the Clintons to get dirt on Monica Lewinsky. Monica Lewinsky complained that people came to her apartment, they killed her cat, they were doing all kinds of harassment. That is classic Anthony Pellicano work. I could imagine, in my fantasy life, OJ playing golf with Clinton. Oh man, you know, I'm having trouble with my ex-wife. You know, what kind of PI should I hire? Oh, we got a guy for you. Talk to Anthony Pellicano. Okay, he can do some dirty work for you. Right? That's Clinton. That's my impersonation of Clinton. Okay. Okay. Now, Pellicano's in this case. I have read all of the sidebars. Remember those sidebars we all saw during the trial when we were watching it live? I've read all those sidebars, okay? And there was one occasion when Darden and Johnny Cochran and Judge Ito, when they're all up there, and the name Pellicano comes up. And I'm not touching Pellicano. I'm not talking about Pellicano. I'm not going to bring that up. I'm not dealing with him. They were all afraid of Pellicano, everybody in that courtroom. Now, Pellicano, where else does he come in? Okay? Pellicano knew Mark Fuhrman. How do you know Mark Fuhrman? There was another guy, Don Simpson. Don Simpson, again, was the producer of Top Gun. Okay, again, Tom Cruise, right? He was the producer of Top Gun. He was involved with all the Heidi Fleiss girls, all that kind of stuff like that, right? He was a real crazy, sadistic kind of guy, right? Now the thing is he had a house guest at his home, and the house guest died of a drug overdose, right? So Don Simpson, what does he do? He doesn't call the police. He calls up Anthony Pellicano. Now this is documented. Anthony Pellicano went to the home and he cleaned up the crime scene, right? Now, when Anthony Pellicano was cleaning up that crime scene, he called the police to come to respond to his death in the home. Now, he didn't call 911. He didn't call the local number. What he called was the first responding officer at that scene was Mark Fuhrman. Okay? So we know that Anthony Pellicano knows Mark Fuhrman. Because robbery homicide does not respond to you have a uniform officer response to a 911 call. So we know that Pellicano knew Fuhrman, and Fuhrman showed up at the home there. So that's a whole nother thread to this OJ trial that is overlooked because Judge Ito and all of them said it's in the court minutes that they were afraid of Pellicano, and then everyone was afraid to say his name out loud.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
The things that they don't tell you.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, like I said, like, what's his name there? Steven, Singular was talking about, cause I can relate to a lot of what he was saying, that when you're thrown into the midst of one of these big giant 24-hour news story trials like the OJ case, which is life-changing, it's just unbelievable. And as you guys know, I've been involved in a lot of that stuff too, with the Tiger Woods case and the Charlie Sheen case, and those 24-hour news stories that come in and consume you.
Oh, definitely, yes.
So the idea that OJ hired somebody, what I think is no. What I think has happened is that Pellicano was known as a guy that would send people over to harass you. Okay, and slash your tires, cause problems for you, leave a dead cat on the hood of your car. I think that perhaps O.J. knew that something was going on, and things got out of hand, either through his connections with Mensker, who were the killers of Roy Radin, through his coke dealing, and he knew something was going on over at that house, or through the connections with Pelicano and slashing tires and that kind of thing. And he knew that there was a murder going down, and he ran over there, ran around in the blood, and ran away like a coward. And that is what O.J. is trying to protect himself from now, is being considered a coward that didn't defend his wife and didn't prevent that murder. Because if you listen to my last show with T.H. Johnson, who's a fascinating guy, and we did a 2-hour show with him, and me and T.H. Johnson spent another 4 hours on the phone together discussing this case. And if you get to those last couple hours, man, if you can make it that far with T.H. Johnson, because he does talk a little slow and it's a little hard to get through, there is fascinating information that he releases. And he knows everybody in this case, because his brother was a doctor. His brother was a doctor that treated O.J., that visited O.J. in the prison because he was his doctor. His brother was a doctor that also treated Chris Darden. So now you want to hear some inside gossip, okay, about paternity suits and baby daddies and all this kind of stuff. Me and T.H. Johnson discuss a lot of stuff, okay, that you're not going to hear anywhere. You're not going to hear it on CNN when they're bringing on Mark Fuhrman's sister, to talk about her book. She just came out with a book, man. And one thing you don't know, too, about Mark Fuhrman's father, Ron Goldman, okay? Not Mark Fuhrman. I mean, Ron Goldman, I meant. I'm sorry. Ron Goldman's father, okay, when he got that judgment against O.J., what happened was Nicole's father and O.J. were in a lot of businesses together. Nicole's father had a judgment against him, or whatever, some kind of bankruptcy, some kind of judgment, or whatever it was. But he put his home, he got a lien on his home. O.J. put a lien on his house to protect the assets from judgment recovery, right? So good old Ron Goldman, what he did was, when he got that judgment, the $30 million judgment against Simpson, he went and got that lien against Nicole's father's home. Okay? So when you see this guy and you think he's a nice guy, he's with the handlebar mustache, and you think he's a cool guy, he's not, man. He was picking the bones of Nicole Simpson's father.
Oh,
yeah, man.
What a guy.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's so much in this case. You have no idea. That's never made the news. And I wish that Steven Singular could have stayed longer and gotten into some of this stuff like this. But he seems to like to stick to the what's in the the internal affairs report and stuff like that. So if we got any more questions or anything like that, we're 7:56. So we're toward the end of the show. I wouldn't mind going longer if anybody has questions or comments or something.
I really don't know. And Rick had to go help the landlady with something.
Okay.
And yet she came over, something happened at her house, and her husband's out of town, so.
Okay.
Rick's the man.
Oh.
No, I'm just fascinated. I wish that, all this stuff would have came out. I could have made a better judgment. Or at least give me something to think about.
I think that the guy to read on this is Alex Constantine, who has probably the best information on this case that I've seen anybody. Okay,
I'll look that up.
Okay, so we're getting in the chat room here. You guys are ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I'm ready to wrap up.
Okay.
Ed, it was a great show, definitely, and thank you for giving me the link and everything, because I enjoyed it.
No, we love you, Annie. Come by, stop by, see us next week. Next week, I think we're going to be doing that show about the Cotton Club murders, which is Roy Radin, who was killed by Larry Flint's bodyguards that, according to Alex Constantine, were dealing drugs with O.J. Simpson. And I believe that story because I've seen the information. Coming up after that, we have Cynthia McKinney coming back, who ran for president. She was a former senator, congresswoman.
Was that the woman that they ran through the mud?
Oh Oh yeah, and she did her dissertation. She's going to be Dr. Cynthia McKinney next time we talk to her.
I love that woman.
She's
really
great.
do. She's great, and then what they did to her was just like, that was way beyond terrible. I can say words for it, but not for radio, but that was awful.
Okay, she's coming on the 20th. We just got notification she's coming on the 20th, and we're going to be talking about assassinations and MK Ultra mind control.
I'll be there.
Okay?
I'll be there.
And she's a legitimate person. She's was a congresswoman. She ran for president. Her father was a congresswoman. So we got her coming. And then we have coming up too, we got Mr. Stephen Wick with the whole story about the Cotton Club murders and all that kind of stuff. Anybody else coming up that we know for sure is coming on? Dave McGowan's always welcome back.
Yeah, and you rock.
Okay, real quick. We got a killer guest coming up involving the West Memphis 3 case. He has never appeared on a radio show before. He testified at the trial. We got him. He's coming on, and it's going to be a huge, huge show. He's coming on probably after McKinney. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up. Thank you for being on the Opperman Report. Check me out Monday. I'm going to be on Caravan to Midnight. We've got a big show coming up, and I guess we'll sign off now. Thank you very much.
Night.
See you next week.